Hold up. Time out. Let's just take a breather, okay? So we can talk about the Regal Mystery Movie that played on March 23rd, 2026, okay? How does that sound? Great, thank you. And that movie that played was They Will Kill You. A woman takes a job as a housekeeper in a New York City high-rise, desperately seeking her sister. It soon becomes apparent that the building's history of disappearances is more sinister than she was expecting. Now she will have to fight for both of their freedoms. Rated R. They Will Kill You is an odd film. I have seen the trailer a dozen times since I'm always at the theater. I actually thought that it looked like a decent over-the-top action film. And at its core, it is that, but only that. Regal advertises as a horror mystery movie, which it is not. But more on that later. The action and the film start out super well, but it teeters off as the film progresses. The movie opens with two sisters traveling under the cover of a storm to escape their abusive father. It's dark, tense, and very rainy. They go into a convenience store for supplies. Unfortunately, their father is hot on their tails and arrives shortly after. It's a fairly tense scene. We don't know the characters or the kind of abuse that they experience, but we do know that we want them to escape. I won't spoil what happens, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Fast forward 10 years, the older sister Asia is now looking for her younger sister. Asia is played by Zazie Beetz. She is the anchor of this film, and apparently the only person who is putting her all into her performance. First, she captures the look of a vengeful sister very well. Sometimes when actors try to look intimidating, they look a little goofy. Not Zazie. She looks like she's ready to tear some people apart. I don't know how much of her stunts she did herself, but the ones where you can see her face, she did a really good job. While the script doesn't offer her character a lot to explore emotionally other than rage, she does her best to bring something special to it. She carries this film on her back. There's a poorly acted man who is her lawyer, her friend, her private investigator, or whatever, we don't know, who helps her zero in on her sister's current location. This brings her to the Virgil, an old exclusive apartment building that is home to a satanic cult. You know, like in Rosemary's Baby. The building is managed by Lilith, played by Patricia Arquette. Her performance was all over the place, much like her accent. At first, I thought she had that classic mid-Atlantic accent, but then she was Irish, and then she was neither. It doesn't really matter to the story, but it was distracting, especially in one scene, which is shown in the trailer. Lilith exclaims, "Who are you?" Just like that. It was such a poor delivery. And it didn't even make sense since this was a quiet moment in the hallway. Arquette does deliver some decent emotion near the end of the film, but by then it's too late. Some other familiar faces that you'll see living at the Virgil are Tom Felton and Heather Graham. But their roles are so basic and minimal, they could have been played by anybody, including me. They have zero characterization. Their dialogue and most of the dialogue in the film was super uninspired. Asia's sister Maria was played by Myla, who was in a previous mystery movie, Dumb Money. Her performance is good. While she is often just staring with her eyes wide open, she does deliver some emotion throughout the film. Once the cult deems Asia to be the sacrifice to their god, they begin to hunt her down throughout the building. This is also when the film abandons any semblance of reality, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when it's executed well. As you see from the trailer, this is a violent, action-packed film. The best fight in the film is the first fight in Asia's room. The choreography is super creative. She fights about 5 assailants using the room itself as a weapon, plus other weapons. People are bludgeoned, shot, and sliced to bits. There's a part where she's lying down on the floor fighting, and it's masterfully shot and performed. It set my expectations pretty high. Unfortunately, as the movie goes on, the fights become less intricate. They felt less personal, despite the stakes becoming more personal. Watching her clear out an entire dining room of goons wasn't nearly as satisfying. It even started to tread into the generic territory. Apparently, none of the residents know how to fight very well. For a 100-year-old cult, it seemed kind of weird that nobody had any skills. And again, if they would have given the named cultist a specific skill set, such as gun or swordplay, it would have bolstered the creative flair. The final fight did bring back some of that creativity, but it was marred by lousy CGI. Accompanying these fights was a copious amount of blood and gore. From the first beheading, it was apparent that this was going to be quite campy. The blood squirted out like an Italian fountain. Squirts and splatters are plenty, though Asia and the environment aren't as covered in blood as you would expect. In fact, there were a few times where the gore felt surprisingly subdued. it was really uneven. Some of the practical effects were fun and well done, but then other things like dismembered body parts looked like they were straight from Spirit Halloween. Costuming was pretty minimal. Asia is in a t-shirt and sweatpants, though she does spend a decent amount of time in her underwear. The maids wear these retro-inspired, curry-colored uniforms. The goons all wear the same black robes. They also wear masks. This makes them all look too similar to know who they are, or to even care who they are. It's just Asia doing her best John Wick impersonation, taking out dozens of faceless baddies. The director's offered solution was to have the baddies take off their masks constantly throughout the film. For a secretive society, it doesn't seem like protecting their identities is super important. I feel like it might have been a contractual thing for Heather Graham and Tom Felton though. Gotta get that screen time and make sure people know who's in those masks. Amidst all of this action is some fun and creative camera work. Some. There's a lot of crash zooms that show you exactly what you should be focusing on. And there is plenty, maybe too much, slow motion. There's plenty of stylistic choices that'll remind you of other directors' work and genres. There was one chase scene that took place in tunnels that I really liked. You see these characters traveling in tunnels from the side, like a cross-section of the building. It felt like something you would see in a Wes Anderson film. The pacing was frantic and messy. While it starts with a steady build-up, once the fighting starts, it goes crazy. It's random, bombastic scenes interrupted by expositional conversation. The characters will explicitly tell you what you explicitly just saw. There isn't any time for the characters to have growth, aside from the stereotypical kinds. Deeper moments are non-existent. There's also a bunch of flashbacks to explain to the audience some new details. And finally, the claim that this is a horror movie. I have been critical in the past about the Regal Mystery Movie series that advertise horror films and then show things that are not horror-oriented. The most recent two being Slanted and Dracula. And now They Will Kill You. This is, at its core, an action movie about fighting for family and revenge. The only hint of horror would be the inclusion of a satanic cult. But they aren't very scary. They're more inept than anything else. There is a single moment, again, in the beginning, that gives off really creepy vibes, but I wouldn't say it's enough to warrant calling this a horror film. I read some reviews that said this is a slasher because of all the gore and blood. Gore isn't a horror exclusive. Have you seen Rambo or RoboCop? Horror, to me, is something that should make you feel fearful, uncomfortable, uneasy, or just plain scared. There's an unknown factor to it. The occult references here are generic and surface level. Sacrifices to your god? Cool, Indiana Jones had that too. There isn't anything here meant to frighten you, only entertain. So no, I will personally not be considering this a horror movie. Fight me in the comments about it. In the end, They Will Kill You was worse than I was expecting. Zazie Beetz was great, but she was surrounded by poor writing and pacing. The uneven action prevented this from being thrilling to me. And that is why I'm giving the Regal Mystery Movie Horror Edition, They Will Kill You, the death-defying score of 5.5 out of 10. There are some great ideas here that I wish were treated better, but too much felt generic and uneven, which is too bad because this could have become a cult classic type of film. But what did you think of They Will Kill You? Check into the comments below and make your battle cry heard. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel or else you might be the next offering. Thanks for watching and I'll see you at the altar. Time in!